It's a lot more apparent now, the design and build world, compared to what it was 20, 25 years
Well,
ago.
absolutely. It certainly used to get looked down on by a lot of property professionals, architects specifically, and professional teams, project managers, etc. They, I think, unfairly looked at it a bit like the Wild West. And there were some bad actors in it, absolutely, but there's bad actors everywhere. There's a lot of good people. It's a great process done well. This still exists to a certain extent, but there was a lot of discussions outside of work. It was a lot more who you know as well as what you know. Very human connections, which I think is lost slightly, which is a shame. In the digital age that we live in, data-driven, we perhaps lose the human connection a bit.
The build side, a lot of people I speak to, and I've noticed that that's kind of slacked a little bit because the design side's pushed so much.
Yeah, I think if you look at, and we'll get onto it later, but if you look at the best in class in fit out now, they've got both. Everything is the level of design that tier 1 D&B companies come up with, on spec usually, because it's pitching, it's costing them a lot of money, it's night and day to what it was 15 years ago. People are wanting to win project on merit rather than by tricking someone. Heavily involved in pitching. Like, I love pitching. I like solving the problem. I like going to meet new clients. The interesting part of work was, for me, was getting a team around it, getting the whole team pushing in the right direction to solve that problem. The value of the project to you as either as a D&B firm or as a PM firm is one thing, but the value of the project to the client is something completely different. And whether they're spending £500,000 or £5 million, it's a really significant sum of money for that business at that time. So you've got to be respectful of that. Design and build market will be led by the evolution of the office. And if you walk around London at the moment, especially in the city and bits of the West End, there are so many big buildings going up. Anyone that tells you the office is dead is wrong now.
Fraser, welcome to SQFT-Stories.
Thank you, Callum.
And firstly, thanks for sorting the space out for us.
Yeah, it's a lovely space. This is one of the clients that we did the project management of nearly 2 years ago now, so it still looks lovely. Still in a great part of London, in a very appropriate setting, I think.
It's appropriate setting for a podcast as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Loads of stuff I want to dive into today. The world of design and build, fit out, and obviously your story and how you made your way into it. So let's start at that. Give us an idea of how you kind of made your way into the fit out, design and build world.
Well, I'm from the Highlands of Scotland, which design and build does not exist in the Highlands of Scotland. I didn't have any idea that design and build existed anywhere, to be honest. Went to university in Glasgow, studied planning and urban design at Strathclyde, and then went to do a master's at Cardiff in urban design and sustainability. And then through a connection, ended up meeting someone who introduced me to the possibility of design and build. And I came up from Cardiff for an interview with a company called LiquidSpace when I was about 24, 25. Still didn't really know what design and build was. I didn't feel that I was qualified, but I did have a property degree. So I think maybe they thought I was a little bit. Got the job, started as a pre-con for LiquidSpace, and sort of took it from there. That was my entry into the market. Little office in Mayfair, pre-financial crash. Green as you like, no idea how anything worked, and I guess I was a sponge. I just learnt from there.
What sort of project size were you facilitating back then?
They would do smaller projects, I guess, so sort of, kind of 2,000 square feet to about 10,000 square feet, but quite high end, really interesting, small office. You were exposed to everything, so the directors were very generous with their time. Agents were very generous with their time, because it was still back in the day when a lot of, and this still exists to a certain extent, but there was a lot of discussions outside of work. It was a lot more who you know as well as what you know. Very human connections, which I think is lost slightly, which is a shame.
What, as in from then to now?
Yeah, from then to now. I think that in the digital age that we live in, data-driven stuff, we perhaps lose the human connection a bit. So I made some great connections with young people who were grads at the time, and now a lot of them own their own businesses, whether they're agents, project managers, fit out people. So I guess I entered at a lucky time, very lucky for me. People took a chance on me, and then I progressed through the LiquidSpace from pre-con through to account management, and Trish, who ran that, was a great help there. She, I guess taught me originally
To everything you know.
how to sort of, how to operate.
So give us an idea of what did pre-con look like back then compared to what pre-con's like now, because I'm assuming that's developed drastically.
Yeah, very different. I think if we even look at what pitching looked like back then, I think of our original pitches would be a cost plan, a space plan, for some reason the insurance document, and a front cover, not even 3D visuals sometimes. And you would be winning projects with Mayfair hedge funds. We did do 3D visuals, but they took forever to do. The program was clunky. It just took every bit. The designers doing it, you couldn't then redo them. So they were only for certain projects. And again, pre-con, I think back then would have been, it was less detailed, I suppose. Still the basic principle, but I think everything was just a bit less detailed. And I'm not, design and build was perhaps in its infancy or in its first kind of, I don't know how, its first stage really. It was professional, but not as professional as it is now.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. A lot of people I spoke to on this podcast say that, how it's become a lot more of a professional industry, design and build.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of, it's a lot more apparent now, the design and build world, compared to what it was 20, 25 years ago.
Well, absolutely. It certainly used to get looked down on by a lot of property professionals, architects specifically, and professional teams, project managers, etc. They, I think, unfairly looked at it a bit like the Wild West. And there were some bad actors in it, absolutely, but there's bad actors everywhere. There's a lot of good people. It's a great process done well. And I think that was my entry in. So that was in 2007 or 8.
Tough
I think,
market as well at that time.
Well, but just I think I probably had 3 years before the crash, and the crash was horrendous.
Yeah.
You're probably not old enough to remember, but
I'm sorry, so, yeah.
and unfortunately, lots of design and build firms didn't survive that crash because Lehman Brothers went bust. There was various other projects, just rug got pulled from under them. LiquidSpace was one of those companies that didn't survive. So I found myself redundant, which was scary at the time. Yeah. But
how old were you then?
28, I think. I can't really remember. 28, I think about 28, 29.
Away from home, living in the big city.
Away from home, living in the city. Boy from the Highlands that thought a post box was a skyscraper. But I loved it, and I loved the industry, and I made some great connections. And when that happened, there was various discussions what we may or may not do. And I decided I hadn't had enough experience in the world of design and build to start on my own at that point. So I went to Pelton Rose for a year.
Was that the ultimate goal then at the end of it, was to have your own business?
There was a lot of discussion around it with me and Ben Gillam, who started ThirdWay. And we always agreed to stay in touch. We're good friends.
And you both worked at LiquidSpace,
we both worked
right?
at LiquidSpace, yeah. We agreed to stay in touch. We're good friends, but I thought it was best for everyone, myself included, if I went and got some experience at a bigger design and build firm. So got a job at Pelton Rose, working in their SME team, which again was a great year. Was only there for a year in the end, but just seeing how other people worked, slight differences.
So what were those
bigger
differences?
design teams. Yeah. Projects were getting bigger. I guess the whole operation there was just a bigger operation, so it was probably a better introduction to M&E, the kind of nuts and bolts of design and build, rather than just the aesthetics of it. So again, working with some really talented people there, learning again. Jitesh, who's still the CEO there, is very generous with his time. Again, learnt a lot about their business and how they operated.
Just to tag on something you said then as well, it's funny that you say that you learnt the nuts and bolts of, like, for example, the M&E, which is the build side, but the amount of people I speak to now where they think that the D&B world's gone so far the other way that it's gone back to the point that it's overlooked the build side and it's just the design side. That I get it gets the covers and like the press, you could call it, but the build side, a lot of people I speak to and I've noticed that that's kind of slacked a little bit because the design side's pushed so much.
Yeah, I think if you look at, and we'll get onto it later, but if you look at the best in class in fit out now, they've got both. Because I think you're right. The sexy stuff is the 3D visuals, the sort of what we're sitting in just now. But if it doesn't work, if the engine doesn't work, the car is useless. So I think that that's very true. So I think it was instilled into me at Pelham Rose because they had a whole department that dealt with that, which was quite, I think, perhaps not unique, but certainly there weren't many people doing it at that time. So that was very interesting. Learned a lot there. And then through various conversations, Ben and I decided that perhaps it was time for me to join ThirdWay early. Yeah. So I think I was probably number 3 or 4.
And what sort of set was ThirdWay then? Was it?
Ben had started it. There was a couple of employees, and it was a genuine. I think we looked at what was good about the design and build market and what could change in the design and build market. And we were young. We were probably slightly, arrogant's the wrong word, but we're confident. And I think
there's a fine line, isn't there?
There's a fine line.
Very fine line.
Not always got it right.
Now I find as well people kind of mistake one for the other as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes when you are a confident person, it's more the less confident people perceive that as arrogance. Correct. And then vice versa as well.
So I think we felt that design and build could be more design led, and it could actually change the way people worked and change the shape of the office. And that was very much from the beginning at ThirdWay what we were trying to do. And it went through various stages. It was a brilliant time. We moved office from St John's Lane to Bleeding Heart Yard, which is where I guess the business really took off. So
giving us an idea, sorry to interrupt, but what were you specifically doing at ThirdWay as the 4th member as such? And then
I guess I went in as director, and I, in the beginning, looked after pre-con as well. I think everyone was very glad when I stopped looking after pre-con. But when you're in startup mentality, you do everything.
Yeah.
Bootstrap's a horrible word. People say it all the time, but you've got to wear a number of hats and you've got to be good at it.
Especially if you have a smaller team as well.
Yeah. And we were competing against people we had no right to compete against. So we were winning projects. I remember winning our first £1 million project. I remember coming up against your kind of people that are still there today in the kind of the larger companies, who probably saw us as an annoyance rather than anything else. And we were very design focused, but delivery focused as well. But I guess the way we were designing, the way we were presenting, the way we were trying to solve the problem was different to everybody else. We were much more design led, much more collaborative with clients. We weren't just giving them this is how it's going to look. We were trying to develop a solution with them, like together. And I think it has changed immeasurably from where it was, the office, but with COVID in between, which I think has actually probably in the end helped, didn't for a long time. But people are now very focused on how their office operates and I think we spotted that very early before anybody else. And before it was mainstream, before people were really concerned about offices used to be front of house, fancy reception, boardroom, mahogany table, whatever, and then just tons of desks in the back where the workers were, and you'd spend your money, fit out wise, you'd spend your money at the front of house and get away with as little money as possible at the back of the house. And that isn't right. And it never sat well with me. And I think we started working with the tech evolution, the growing, we were lucky to be based in Farringdon, because when we started in Farringdon, it's because it was cheap. It certainly isn't cheap anymore. But a lot of emerging industries were basing themselves there. Some really interesting clients, some clients that we moved 5 times in 8 years because they took 1,000 square feet, then 3,000 square feet, and then so it moved on. And I think that being in that melting pot of ideas and businesses that wanted to change the way that they worked, so tech firms that wanted to attract and retain the best talent, recognized that their office had to be interesting. It had to be big breakout spaces and presentation areas. And I remember all that starting. It was really exciting. I think we probably were one of the first, if not the first, to start to put bleacher seating into offices, and all these things that were alien to so many people weren't alien to us. But I think did it come from the San Francisco Bay Area? Maybe that's generally how design evolves, and became that offices were for staff more than they were for the people coming into it. And I think that was a great evolution in the office market. And I think we were at the front of that. And some of it's luck, some of it's judgment, and we rode that wave, and it was
it's
brilliant.
probably timing as well, I suppose, because as you guys started, by the sounds of it, trying to disrupt a market that had some big leading players in it, and
Exactly.
it kind of.
But it's when the tech disruptors were coming in to disrupt other things.
Yeah.
So, and it worked very well that these companies were generally run by young, confident tech people, and they quite liked that they were speaking to young owners of a design and build business. So we would win work by not being the other account manager, by being the owner-led, owner-delivered, which I guess was really, really not easy, but it's really possible while you were a certain size. But once you get bigger and bigger, you can't do that. That's where you have to step away from that.
Give us a bit of an idea of the evolution of yourself within ThirdWay. Like, how did you navigate yourself through the years of work in design and build as that kind of?
Well, I think it became apparent very soon that I wasn't the best pre-con in the world, and we needed to have a commercial department. So we had a commercial department, and then I was probably leading the account director team, but then we'd employ more people. We had a very big, the way that we like to employ younger people and train them up, rather than, because design and build, I mean, there are a lot of great people in design and build, but there are also a lot of journey people that have been around. They're probably overpaid. They jump ship every 2 years. We didn't really want any of them. We wanted young, but not young didn't really mean age. It meant people that were forward thinking and people that maybe a lot of people had changed industry. People had come from a tech background or a recruitment background, or architects that were wanting to do something more fast paced had come into our design team. So people that had pivoted a little bit, but they were willing to learn. And I think that then allowed us to have fresher ideas, keener people that were really all driving in the same direction. They weren't stuck in their ways. They weren't, and I think that's what we recognise could be changed in the market. And then by doing that, I think we helped change. I'm not saying we did it exclusively, but the design and build market changed. The whole design and build market changed because the office market changed, and the way that people designed offices has changed. So through that, then I guess I became the head of the account director team, if that makes sense. So I still pitched. I pitched up until I kind of left. I was still heavily involved in pitching. Like, I love pitching. I like solving the problem. I like going to meet new clients. The interesting part of work was for me was getting a team around it and getting the whole team pushing in the right direction to solve that problem. And we found that if you're all engaged as a team and the client understands that, then the chance of you winning that project is really quite high.
Do you think we're in a similar sort of place now, where we are literally now modern times, compared to when you were then, when it was a tech bubble, in terms of the use of the office is changing, and because I want to tag on the back of something you said there, where I find there's a lot of, careful I say this, but archaic people, I suppose, in the industry that are stuck in a similar way of working. And I feel like nowadays, with our industry, fit out design and building, the use of the workspace, I feel like there's a lot of emerging talent coming through who are younger and more forward thinking. I feel like it's developed in terms of the personnel in the last 15 years, and from now in the next 15 years it will probably develop even more so compared to that 15 years.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there was if we look at it in sort of 3 stages, pre-COVID, well, post-crash, pre-COVID, there was a massive growth period of the office changed and became more exciting, became a destination, if you'd like to say. Then we had COVID, which was obviously dreadful for the property industry. People thought that the office would die. I think I never thought that, but there was definite worry that offices were never going to be the same again.
Every time I went on LinkedIn, there was someone writing a post about the office is never coming back.
And the office, it's true that the office was never the same again, but it was a positive thing, not a negative thing. So then we got out of that, and that, I think, has then led to maybe the third evolution of the office, which is where we are just now, of it being a renewed destination that people really, they want to come in, they want to collaborate, they want to be with people. And I think that's what the whole office is focused around. I thought what happened with the work from home, sort of period of time there was a lot of that, we've missed teaching young people, and being a young person in that must have been very difficult, because being on constant Zoom calls and not really learning from directors, I think, is a real shame. Like I sort of said it in the beginning, I was very fortunate when I was young that older people, more senior people, gave me their time and they taught me. And I would sit in meetings I had no right in being in. And it really, you were a sponge. You wouldn't understand everything, of course, but you could get out the meeting then on the tube back and ask them a question and say, well, what did you mean there? How did that? I don't really get that. And I think now it is clear, I'm walking around London every day, it's clear that the return to the office is fantastic and huge. And in our new world as project managers and consultants, I think we get to see across the whole industry, which is quite interesting, and we get to see the different ways of designing that all the different design and build companies are coming at things with. Because of course within that, the cost of everything has gone up massively. So fit out is now very expensive.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
So clients are making giant investments in their team, in their real estate, I guess. And that's not just the rent, it's the price of the actual fit out. And I think that's the change we're at now, is that it's not a price-driven market, but it's a design-driven market to try and squeeze the most out of the available funds, if that makes sense.
So obviously you developed all the way through ThirdWay. You went from pre-con to account director type thing. So give us an idea of how ThirdWay as a company developed as well. So they obviously...
Well, I think we grew at an exponential rate. And it was a very interesting, chaotic at times time. And a lot of really great people came through that business, who are now, some of them are still there. Lots of them are at various other design and build firms around London as very senior people. So I feel that we created a great training ground, and it's a credit to everybody in that business when you see other people as MD of area or whatever various jobs people have gone on to do. It can only be looked at as we were doing something right.
So quite rewarding for you as well.
Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that we mentored these people. Obviously they did it themselves as well, but we gave them the platform. And they are now across the industry, not just in fit out, some of them have become agents, some of them are working in tech, but some of them are working in various landlord roles. But their introduction to the industry was through us. And I think that's a real achievement. And that's what I think, if we went to a working from home culture, that's where you struggle to have that training ground. Because as a new person, it's really quite daunting if you're not learning from other people.
So as you as your journey at ThirdWay, I suppose, came to an end, what was the plan for yourself then, and how did you want to develop from there?
Well, I guess we had grown to well over 100 people, and my skill set is when the business is smaller and growing. When you know everybody's name, everybody's dog name, maybe. I think I'm not particularly great at process. I'm not particularly great at slotting into a big machine. So starting out at ThirdWay was amicable. It's great. Like, still friends with a lot of people there. We were in a fortunate position, me and my wife, to take the kids around the world. The kids were young. So twins were 3, I think. Cora was 1, and me and Kath decided that it's the only opportunity we're ever going to have to go around the world. So we booked a round the world ticket.
Where'd you go?
Went to Costa Rica, then Argentina, then New Zealand, where my sister lives. So we've been there before. Then Japan.
Nice.
And people thought we were mad, but it was brilliant fun.
What, in Japan?
And everywhere.
Oh,
everywhere.
yeah.
The kids were amazing.
Yeah.
Me and Kath loved it. It was incredible. And then we got to Japan, and COVID was starting to be a thing. We weren't sure. The Tokyo Marathon, which Kath was going to do, got cancelled. Or the mass marathon got cancelled. The professional one still went ahead. And then we were meant to be going to Morzine for 6 weeks to do sort of a bit of a ski season. That was us coming back to real life. We got to France. We had 1 week of skiing, and then lockdown came.
Yeah.
And the French were more severe with their lockdown than the British. We'd rented our house out in London. We had nowhere to go. We packed the car up in Morzine and drove to the tunnel because we were scared the tunnel was going to close, which it did, but we made it, which was fine. Kids were, again, a bit confused, I think, but probably all right with it. We'd rented our house out in London, so we didn't have anywhere to go to there. We still didn't really know what COVID was at that point.
No one did really. So.
No, and it was chaotic, but we didn't have a business to worry about. So I think we were very fortunate. We're just in our little family bubble, and all we had to do was make sure everyone was happy. We ended up renting a cottage in Cornwall, and we ended up staying there for 4 months while COVID came and went, while the people renting our house still needed somewhere to stay, so they stayed there. And it was, maybe if you remember, it was beautiful weather, so we were in this, at the end of a farm track, lovely fields. Didn't really feel like lockdown. So I sympathise for everyone that was running businesses at the time and really worrying. And I was speaking to a lot of friends, largely in property, and everyone was very concerned. But during that, an ex-client of ours, Harley Kinsberg, phoned me and said, I think it'd be good if you came and sat on our side of the table as part of the professional team. And I'd never considered being a project manager. I didn't really like the majority of the PM teams that I'd worked with at Fit Out. I thought they were a hindrance rather than a addition. So I kind of toyed around with it. I had nothing else to do, so I didn't have a plan. I think people like to think I had a plan.
That was my next question.
I didn't have a plan.
At least you're honest.
I didn't know what I was going to do. People thought, well, you go back into Fit Out. I think I'd done Fit Out. I'd had great fun helping build that business. Going to do it again, I don't think would have been the right move.
So no inclinations restart back up?
There wasn't, no. And obviously I had various non-compete clauses that I had to navigate. And then they were quite insistent, this ex-client, Harley. He kept going. And I was like, right, okay, I'll write you a proposal. I'll put a number to it. It's quite a big number. And he said yes. I thought, oh, maybe this is actually all right, maybe. And then the more I sort of thought about the PM industry, how, again, you talked earlier about archaic. There are some brilliant people in the PM industry, but there were also a lot of what I would say stuck in their ways people as well. I thought, actually, we've got an opportunity to disrupt this slightly and actually come at it from a slightly different angle. Being ex-design and build, you know more about design and build than most PMs who are MRICS qualified, they're university taught, which again there's nothing bad about that. It's just a different angle. So it meant I could speak to clients in a way that I was sort of informed differently. So we could talk about the process, we could talk about where it could go wrong, where it couldn't go wrong, but really it was talking about collaboration. There's, I think, it still exists a little bit, it's less so now, but there was certainly at one point a big thing where people they'd want to be the professional team and the client, and the other side of the table was the contractor. And it was looked at as you were
us versus them.
We'd bang our fists, we'd make it cheaper. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted the best projects are where everybody is sitting around a round table and collaborating. And also, my experience had been at times that QSs and PMs would get involved to try and batter all the profit out of the project. And if that happens, then the other business can't function. We saw it in a massive scale with ISG. Like ISG, I'm sure went bankrupt for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons were that their profit was getting forced out of their jobs by professional teams who had no understanding of how much money was required to run these big risky businesses. So we, at that point, it was just me, or me and Kath. We set up the business and we did the project for iTech. And then we did another project and then another project. And it became apparent again that I needed help and couldn't do it on my own. So Louise joined the business. She was a senior designer at Peldon Rose when I knew her. She then had her own wedding consultancy business that she sold out of and was looking for something to do. So she came on initially as a consultant, but it became fairly clear that having a designer in our team to be a design consultant, not to design for the fit out companies, but to be able to speak design language was really important and a real USP, and clients loved it. So very quickly, Louise came on as a partner. So then there was three of us.
Sorry to interrupt. How different was it to have almost like a fit out team acting as a project management? Because you said earlier that a lot of the time it was people who were, you know, at university and studied it, but having people from fit out like yourself, pre-con, I suppose, account director and a designer sat on the project management side, I suppose that helped you stand out from...
I think it massively helps, still does help us stand out. We helped clients navigate the process better. And I think initially fit out companies were probably a bit skeptical of it because they were like, we know too much. Yeah. We're the poacher turned gamekeeper.
Yeah.
But I think it stands to reason now in our 5th year that actually having someone that understands the process is beneficial to everybody.
It really
is beneficial to the fit out company, to the client, to the agent, to the landlord, that we can cut through a lot of the noise. We know that there are pressure points on every part of the process and we can help solve the problems. And again, we were all very much in the beginning and still true today. We didn't want to be front and center. There are some professional teams that don't want the contractor to talk to the client. They want them only to go through the professional team. Now that must work in some scenarios. It doesn't work for us. For us, we are the puppet master behind the scenes. We want, if you're the designer, we want you to be designing with the client. We'll help advise, of course, but we don't want to be pretending we're doing it or putting on LinkedIn that we've designed this great project. We haven't designed the project. We've facilitated the project, absolutely, but we haven't. The work has been done by the D&B firm and the client. So I think being open and transparent like that has really helped. And it's been an interesting journey being on the other side of the table, seeing how all the other fit-out companies do it. And it is, everyone does, I mean, the product is relatively similar and good quality from most products, but everyone does it slightly differently. And it's been an interesting journey from that perspective.
What was it? So what is it actually like being sat on the other side in terms of having not only a PM mindset, but a fit-out mindset?
I think you can catch things. You can look at something and go, that will become a problem because it's been a problem for me before. And then I think the next sort of evolution for M5s was when Ben Grave came on board. So Ben had worked with me, for me, before at ThirdWay. He headed up D3 and then he was off going to go, he married a French lady and he was going to go and live in France and do Escape to the Chateau, let's call it.
What's D3 just for
D3
reference?
Is a part of the ThirdWay group fit out. So he headed that up. So again, he headed up the business unit and he didn't move to France in the end. So he came on board as a consultant to start with, but it became very apparent having his skill set within the business helped. So he became the 4th business partner. That's 2 years ago now. And I guess we've grown since that addition. That's been our sort of launch pad really, that we don't really want to grow massively bigger. We are director only, which again, in the world of consulting, not just in property consulting, lots like Deloitte and any of these sorts of firms, often you will meet the partner and then a team of more junior people will deliver the project for you. And that happens in project management as well. But it's been successful since McKinsey have done it, so we can't criticize it. However, I think that clients of ours, they want to meet the partner and the partner does the work because it's a fairly intense period of time with big numbers and potentially lots of things can go wrong or right. And they want that consistency throughout. So we are partner only, no employees, and we've no intention of employing anyone. We stick doing smaller number of projects than the majority of our competitors, but by doing that, it means that the 3 of us can work across all projects. So a client gets that level of consistency.
I suppose that's a niche, isn't it, for you guys?
Yeah, that's our, ex-D&B and partner only are our niches.
Something I just want to again speak about, you mentioned earlier, was you said that sometimes people don't want contractor client collaborating. There's always the PM in between in the middle. Why do you think that is? I
don't know. I struggle to think about a lot of the historical PM relationships. It might be a power play. It might be that it goes back to the kind of looking at design and build in a derogatory fashion. They feel that they must be in control of it. Whereas again, we spoke about it earlier, I think that design and build as an industry has become much more architectural and much more detailed. And if you actually look at the architectural industry, it's become much more design and build. So we're now at a meeting point somewhere in the middle that everything's more professional. Everything is the level of design that tier 1 D&B companies come up with on spec usually, because it's pitching, it's costing them a lot of money, is it's night and day to what it was 15 years ago. I think you could almost, at the point of someone pitching, you could almost build it straight from there. And that, I think, is like, it's credit to the design and build industry and all the people in charge within it. And I think gone are the days largely that people are being pitched one design and then they realize the costs are nothing to do with that design and everything's an extra. I guess having people like us in the room helps that, because we know any tricks of the trade that could potentially disrupt the client. But at the same time, I think the industry as a whole has largely stopped doing that sort of behavior. I think
how rife was that?
I think we used to feel it was always rife. We'd feel that we would pitch the proper cost and the proper design, and then someone else would come in and they were suddenly X amount cheaper, which was impossible. But then perhaps you'd find out that none of the design was actually included in the base cost, which I think gave design and build a bad name, and rightly so. But I do genuinely believe now, and we only work in a tiny corner of the market, but I believe we do probably work with most of the main players within the market. And our experience so far has been that everybody has grown up a bit, as you say. I think that's the way of looking at it. People are wanting to win project on merit rather than by tricking someone. And that's the key thing, because the client feels empowered at that point. If the client's constantly questioning it and worried that they're being hoodwinked in one way, shape or form, then it's not a very good relationship. If the client feels that you are actually facilitating a great relationship, then that, I think, is a much more positive outcome.
Just from a nosy perspective, you mentioned earlier that tier 1s are spending humongous amounts of money on pitches. Like, what sort of money do they spend on pitches?
But I don't do it anymore, so I don't know. But I think it's tens of thousands of pounds. Tens of thousands of pounds. And it may be six figures for some of the bigger projects, because the quality of what's being produced, the 3Ds, the 3D walkthroughs, the amount of time it takes. And I think it's about, when we are running pitch processes, it's about being respectful of people's time. We hear of some pitches where 10 people are asked to pitch, which is a waste of time. Like, you want to do a PQQ and then cut it down to a smaller number of people to allow them a fair chance of winning. And we would always want people that are genuinely in the room with a fair chance of winning. If it's predetermined already because the client wants to use someone or whatever and negotiate it, that's totally fine. But I would never I know how much it costs. I know that. And it's not just the cost, it's the opportunity cost. Because if you're pitching something and you spend a month pitching it, you're not looking at other things for that month. So we're trying to be respectful of other people's time, but then also making sure that the client does give the time to the people pitching. Because you can only pitch well if you're exposed to the client and you actually understand their design needs and wants. So we try and make sure when we speak to clients, we are trying to make sure that they understand they have to commit to the process. If they want a good outcome, they've got to be heavily involved for a fairly short period of time. And that, I think, is the difference between a good project and a bad project. If a client expects someone to go away and design it for them, it can look nice, but it will never operate correctly, because no one understands a business better than a client. So it's almost, in some ways you could look at it, you're trying to educate clients as well. You're trying to say to clients that, look, you need to be part of this process and I can help you drive it, but I don't know your business. I think you know your business. So actually holding the client to account is as important as holding the design and build contractor to account. And I think that is now what D&B companies do realise, that having a good project management team involved in the project can be positive for both parties. Whereas I think, certainly when I used to do it, I always felt that the PM team were purely protecting the client and they weren't trying to facilitate a collaboration between contractor and client. Whereas I think now, not just us, there are other operators that are good at it as well. Everyone is trying to make sure that it is a genuine collaboration between design teams, build teams and client to then get to the best outcome. So
you've obviously been through the growth and development of ThirdWay as a leader there, and you're now leading the new company. Like, what's different in terms of your approach to leading the team that you're trying to lead in now?
Well, I guess the leading as a team at ThirdWay was very different, because you are leading people that are much more junior than you, and or you're trying to empower people, you're trying to teach people. Whereas leading M5, I don't even know if I am leading M5. I think I'm one of 4 leaders of M5. I did start it, but there's no hierarchy within M5. Louise leads the design side and owns the design side. Ben leads the commercial side and owns the commercial side. Now, I dip into both of them, much to their annoyance, because they're better at it than me. And then Kath leads the legal and invoicing side. So I guess my job within it is to be front and center for clients and kind of agents and contacts and design and build firms and landlords, etc. But I feel that it's a strange part of the industry to have ended up in, and it feels like a privilege that you're invited into these environments to discuss with people these phenomenally intricate and expensive projects that will have a really big impact in the business in that business's next 5-10 years. And we're, I guess, trusted as custodians to help that happen, which I think is a privilege. Like it's easy to think, oh, it's just another client, but for that client, it is a massive bit of work.
Huge.
And I think some people don't pay that enough respect. That it doesn't really, the value of the project to you as either as a D&B firm or as the PM firm is one thing, but the value of the project to the client is something completely different. And whether they're spending £500,000 or £5 million, it's a really significant sum of money for that business at that time. So you've got to be respectful of that. And if it went wrong and they were late into their occupation or their space didn't work, it could be quite catastrophic. And I think it's realizing your responsibility at that point.
Because it's not just catastrophic in that moment, it's catastrophic
for
in
the next 5
years
exactly.
time.
And if you get the acoustics wrong or you get the air conditioning, it's rarely the design, the architectural design that they get wrong. It's if people get the nuts and bolts of the building wrong, you can never fix it. You can try and patch it up and you can come back and do little bits here and there. But if it's designed wrong to start with, there isn't really a way of fixing
coming back.
it. There's no coming back. So I think it is taking a step back, taking more time. We always say to clients, I'd rather you spent 3 weeks more designing it than rushing to site to build it. Because once you're rushing to site to build it, you're kind of in a process. There's not much that can change or not easily change. So it is trying to inform clients as well as landlords as well as that we need time, and hopefully people will engage early enough. Now that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you're brought in as a last minute parachute to try and rescue something, which is fine. But it's trying to tell clients when we first meet them, I know you think this is early, but this is a ginormous move for you. You need to think about it 2 years out. And again, that's, I guess, the difference in doing what we do now to doing design and build. At design and build, you were always brought in at kind of, there's definitely a project happening. We now have to pitch, let's go. Whereas now we are brought in to consult on whether a project should happen or not. And there's been a few projects of late that we've done fact finding and due diligence for clients that actually you could argue we've talked ourselves out of a job, but we've proven it isn't prudent to move at this time. Or the building they were looking at, although the location's good, the prices of doing the fit out is astronomical, or the fit out won't work there. So they're actually better not exercising their brake and going again in 3 years' time. And I think that's quite important to be able to give clients honest, independent advice, because it's possible that someone would say you should do that project because they get a bigger fee. Whereas there's one client specifically that we've now done 2 bits of due diligence for and never built anything. We will eventually build something.
Of course.
And we will almost certainly get the work because we've done the honest appraisal due diligence stuff that has generated very little fees for us, but it's the right thing to do in the long run, and you can evidence that.
One thing you mentioned just a minute ago, John, what you were saying there about the team and that you're kind of like front of house, I suppose, with agents that you know.
Yeah.
And you've obviously know quite a few people in the industry, but in the modern day times in our industry as such, like, how much do you think it is who you know, not what you know, compared to what it was like maybe when you started ThirdWay?
Well,
or joined ThirdWay as such?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think now the world of business development has also professionalized. I think business development, certainly when I entered the industry, was who you knew, who you went for lunch with, who some of the West End lads went shooting with or whatever. It was never my gig. But who you went to school with, that sort of thing. was really important. I think the evolution now is that all sides of the property market, agents, landlords, fit out, project management, they've all realized the value of business development. And the business development is not me phoning you up to say, Callum, I've got a project for you. It is numerous business development professionals piecing together jigsaws to try and work out a deal. And I think that's the big change. So I think most agency teams now have business development people because it's competitive. There are a lot of independent agents out there. There are a lot of, obviously, the big CBREs, JLLs, but they all now have business development teams. They realize that to get themselves in the best position with clients, they need to know early about projects. They want to have partners that they can work with, whether it's in the PM world or the fit out world, and also the design and build firms, a lot of them anyway, they've got such sophisticated information streams that they'll know about projects before anybody else. So it's good for us to be able to speak to, we don't speak to everybody, we speak to people that we know. And again, what I said earlier about ThirdWay being the training ground, so many people from ThirdWay have gone out to work for other bits of the industry. So I know them personally. And that's always been, I like the idea that if you know someone's senior within a business, then you can have an awkward conversation with them. Everyone can have good conversations because that's easy. It's not so easy to have hard conversations. So being able to go for a coffee or beer with someone and say, look, this hasn't gone well, or this part of it's not going well. What can we do to pivot and change? That's the harder thing to do. And it's a lot easier to do if it's someone that you've done work with over a number of years. So the entry into that's difficult because there's lots of other people out there I don't know who I'm sure are perfectly capable of doing their job. And you can't speak to everybody. We only do a small amount of work. So if we're doing 10 or 15 projects a year, there's no point in us speaking to 10 or 15 fit-out companies because you just can't, it would be unfair to say to people, we can get you on these pitch lists because realistically you can't. But again, there are lots of other smaller PM firms who will also speak to another corner of the market. And I think that's the difference now. The difference in business development is that it's information fact finding and actually knitting together a jigsaw, which I think it's helped us immeasurably, but it also has helped the market.
How do you find, you mentioned there's information fact finding, which means it's a lot more data driven. Do you think that will ultimately lose the human connection side because you're not going shooting down the West End?
I don't know. I think people buy people. I think fundamentally, there's loads of public information out there about lease break events, etc. So no client moving office is a secret. But really, it's about working out which client you can work well with. And then obviously you still have to introduce yourself to that client. They've still got to say, yes, they'd like to meet you. But if you can come up with a compelling story as why M5 are the right partner for them, the likelihood of them saying yes to actually a meeting. And then after that, it's a people relationship. But you can get enough data to work out the jobs that are worth chasing, let's say, than, because there's no point in us going after 200,000 square foot law firm. They're never going to use a 4-person consultancy. They will use one of the big guys, which is totally fine. But if we find there's a small tech firm that are leaving serviced office and taking their first ever office, and you can work out on LinkedIn that you're connected to the CEO there through another CEO, then actually you can put together, people are quite receptive because they actually, I think people, if you've done some homework and you've realized that you maybe are a good fit for their need, and you're not just knocking on the door saying, please give me a job, then I think people are generally quite respectful of that and they would like to work with people like that. So there's a lot more background to do, but it means when you go to meet people, you're more informed and then potentially you're giving a better service. Because if you're just meeting someone for the first time and at best you've looked at the website, you don't really know what they're doing. You don't know how their business works. You don't know what their property history is. You don't know anything like that, but you can know all without too much digging and a lot of public realm information, you can know a lot and you can be quite informed. And then when you sit in front of someone, they realize that you are well informed and you're not being lazy and you have actually done your work.
I think that's a really good thing about, it's good and bad about LinkedIn nowadays, but I think that's a really good thing about LinkedIn because when I'm potentially looking at clients or people to work with or, people to work for us or vice versa, I do actually go on their LinkedIn profiles a lot of the time and see if they're posting regularly. If they are, you can kind of get an idea of what a person's like.
Absolutely.
And you can either buy in or buy out of that person as such.
Exactly that. And you also know, I think, the more experience you get, you know what sort of clients like you, and you know what sort of clients you're unlikely to win. And it doesn't cost us anywhere near as much money as it costs fit out firms to pitch. However, we don't have the bandwidth to be pitching all the time. We're running 2 or 3 projects at once. You're probably talking to 2 or 3 other clients in the background. That's all we have the bandwidth to do, because we don't have a business development team. We don't have a team of callers. We don't have anything like that. So we have to be quite selective of the work that we put ourselves forward for. Because if you choose the wrong project, wrong location, wrong client, wrong budget, whatever, it can suck a lot of time out of the business. And sometimes it can be you have to take a step back and not go for something that you think there was a big project in Canary Wharf that we pitched for, we didn't win, and I think it was a blessing we didn't win it in the end. It would have been too big for us. We got quite far down the process. We beat some of the bigger firms to get into the last 2 or 3. However, the scale of the project was incorrect for us. But there is an ego part of it. You think, I really want to be that. That'll be the best fit out in London, whatever. But you have to be able to take a step back and say, actually, much better dealing with a company that no one's ever heard of, who are doing this really great medium-sized office move, and we can really impart our knowledge onto. So that, again, it's just experience that you don't need to chase everything, and what's right for you is right for you.
Knowing your lane, isn't it, I suppose?
Knowing your lane.
One thing I'm really interested to ask you actually is going from fit outside to PM side, like how do you find dealing with contractors, like builder contractors, considering you were, I suppose, one at one point, and like do you see any like pitfalls that they come up against a lot of the time?
Well, I think we can help them a lot. I think that's the good thing, is that we when we are speaking to them, whether it's their pre-con team, their delivery team, their design team, we are speaking their language. So they can say to us openly and honestly, look, the incumbent air conditioning contractor here is a nightmare. And we can empathise with them, because we know that if you're in a big building, the landlord's BMS people might be difficult. But we can also try and cross that bridge early and make sure that people are early engaged with these to stop the pitfall happening. So I think in the beginning, people were worried that we would unearth things and knew too much about the dark arts of fit out, let's say. But in real terms, I think we're a positive addition to both teams, because we can help on both sides. And if someone is struggling with a sprinkler firm or an air conditioning firm, we can go to the landlord and say, this is really, if someone's quoted too much or time has become an issue or whatever it might be, we can help solve that problem and not be just sort of dismissive of it and say, look, this is your problem. You're contractually bound to sort it out, because there's no point in doing that, because fundamentally it's a problem that needs solved. And if you have got the ability to help solve the problem, that's why you're in the room.
Do you think it's a bit of an issue then? Say, for instance, you I suppose the wool can't be pulled over your eyes because you've been on both sides of the table, but like where a project manager might be maybe a junior project manager, and they're carrying out a fit out for a client, and they've got a contractor who is kind of pulling the wool over their eyes a little bit. I know
I think that does exist, and I think that is obviously everyone has to learn something from somewhere. So I don't mean any disrespect to more junior people. However, that is one of our USPs, because we are partner only, that we know that doesn't happen.
There's no wool coming over your eyes.
There's no wool coming over our eyes. But it also works both ways, because sometimes you have to be quite strong with clients, because clients, by their own admission, can be their own nightmare. There can be too many opinions, too many cooks in the kitchen, or not enough focus on it. It's one or the other. Often it's not either, because they're actually quite well aligned and there's a good property team within the client, or a good HR team. So it's making sure you hold the client to account as well. And I think that's when we're actually, although we're employed by the client, we are helping every part of the process there. We're actually, I guess, making sure that clients are fully aware of their responsibilities, because if the client doesn't pay attention at the beginning of the project, inevitably you will get to the end of the project and they'll be like, oh, why did that happen? And say, well, because you didn't want to focus on this at that time or whatever. So we try, and we don't get to that point, but we know that it could happen. We will make sure that the clients commit the correct amount of time. And that's not to say sitting in endless meetings. It's to be quite focused, because their time is precious. And And the reason they've appointed someone like us is because they don't have the bandwidth in-house to do it. So you've got to be respectful of their time. But you also have to know that if they don't put the time in, the end product won't be great.
Where do you see the design and build world industry getting to in, say, the next 10, 15 years? Because, we've discussed how it's developed up to now, but do you think it's going to change in the next 10, 15 years? And if you do, how do you think that might, how do you think it might change?
Yeah, no crystal ball. So
no secrets being revealed.
There's no, well, I think,
it might not.
It has massively professionalized.
Yeah.
It has massively professionalized. It is, now there's so much money involved in it. Whether it starts to get regulated, I don't know.
And when you say regulated, just for people who might not know what you mean by that.
Well, if you look at architecture is regulated,
yeah,
and design and build isn't. Now, whether people will start to want an affiliation to a certain body because it will prove beyond doubt a certain level of standards, that might happen. I don't think it would be a bad thing, as long as it's not loads of red tape and it actually stops creativity. We don't elongates the process too much. I think that the constant design and build market will be led by the evolution of the office. Yeah. And if you walk around London at the moment, especially in the city and bits of the West End, there are so many big buildings going up. Anyone that tells you the office is dead is wrong now. So I think there will be more and more very interesting fit outs in quite big buildings. Yeah. Because if you look at, we were in Broadgate Tower yesterday, the work they're doing there to create the new reception and amenities by the landlord, by British Land. So that is then to attract tenants. Like I guess it is the kind of, people speak about the hotelification, or
massively.
Everything becoming more hospitality driven and service driven. Now I think that's happening. I think the building we're in just now, the Hilo building, very much one of the market leaders within that. So you've got really great end of journey facilities for staff. So if someone goes to a building like that with these great, whether it's bike storage, showers, yoga rooms, gym, anything, then the office that they create within that space is also going to be world class. So I think the opportunity for really exciting fit outs that are going to empower the people that come to these offices to work in the best way possible is probably the evolution of design and build. So I think design rarely stands still. I think the market will keep up with that and probably drive it forward. And some of the great designers out there will come up with new solutions. And whether it's, again, we're sitting around here, there's a lot of furniture in here that I think furniture used to be a bit part of fit out. It's now almost half of the fit out.
Amount of money spent on the furniture.
Correct.
Side
Again, we're surrounded by great planting. There's all these different aspects of an office, I think, are having more and more importance, down to how good the coffee machine is. Like, these are the things that, London is an expensive place to live. So if you're a grad that can come into an office and not have to spend £4 on a flat white, because the flat white in the office is great. Although that doesn't seem much to people, that's £4 5 times a week, 20 quid a week, then actually
it's a big change.
It's a real difference to their overall offering. So that's what the office now and further into the future, I think, is going to offer. It's always been about attracting and retaining something. I think it used to be about clients when it was fancy front of houses and boardrooms. It's now very much about staff, because recruitment's so expensive. So if you're a tech firm or a finance firm or legal firm, whatever, and you want the best staff, you have to have a really good offering for your office. And I think that's the exciting part of it. That's going to give us as project managers, but more so designers, the autonomy to actually come up with some really great solutions. And the other thing that is now not a buzzword anymore, it's genuinely being implemented, is the sustainability. Because construction in general is quite wasteful. You build something, you rip it out 5 years later, which in any other part of the world is mental. However, people aren't really going to inherit someone else's office and like it, because it's all personal taste and how things work. So the recycling, the reuse, the story behind the products is now really important. It used to be a sticker, I think, people put on it. I think people actually give it the time of day now. Clients are driving for, whether it's SCA or BREEAM or whatever, they're driving for accreditation. And then designers are actually sustainability is at the front of their mind while designing, rather than it being slapped on at the back.
Yeah.
Part
Just
of
an
the
afterthought.
O&Ms, an afterthought.
Yeah,
So I think they're the things that will hopefully push design forward.
How about plans for yourself and the business you're kind of running now? Like where do you see that getting to?
I think the journey's been interesting. The type of clients we've worked with, are working with, has changed. We're now working with a couple of Japanese corporate clients. If you asked me that a year or so ago, I just said you were mad.
Bit of a round robin moment. That actually, you spent time in Japan, didn't you?
Well, there you go. Exactly. I'd like to go back. Love it. I think for us, we'll continue to do great fit outs, continue to advise on great fit outs across London. I don't think it will change from that. I think we've done one project in Barcelona, was for a London client. We would go back into Europe because I think we can add value still.
How did you find procuring projects in different countries?
We found a partner that had a European offering. So we did all the design, and I guess everything was done from London. And then the D&B partner had a Spanish partnership, I guess you'd call it.
Cool.
And there's quite a few now. There's quite a few of the London D&B firms now have European availability. Actually, some of them have worldwide availability.
Yeah.
So I think we might do a little bit more of that, but that would only be for clients that we already had. We'd never be looking to go just into Europe. I think we've dabbled with stuff outside of London. In real terms, our strength is London. We know the London market. We know the central London, zone 1 and 2. That's what we'll stay doing. And I think we'll continue to, I don't think it'll change much. I think probably the size of some of the projects might change.
How about the team? Do you think that's going to...
I don't think so.
No?
I think the team, there's a world that another partner comes on board, but I don't think there's a world that we start to employ people. I think the joy of what we do is that we can stand there and say, like, hand on heart, we're partner owned and delivered. As soon as you start diluting that, I know it will allow you to scale. However, we become the same as everybody else. And that's no criticism of everybody else. Some of the businesses that have been established a long time and some of the newer ones are doing fantastically well. It's just not for us. I think the strength is that we're capable of doing it all on our own. We don't need to worry about what someone else is doing. And I think that will continue. So we will be we'll keep doing a smallish number of projects, picking them carefully. And I think that maybe one of the changes has been and will continue to be that we're in a fortunate position that I'm not saying we get to select our work, because it's not quite as easy as that, but we will work with the people that want to work with us and we're good working with.
And I suppose you're in a position to be able to turn down work.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is work that's not for us. Yeah. And there's work that if a client doesn't share the same values as us for great design and collaboration, then we're not the right people for them. There are other people that will facilitate that for them. So I think trying to pick the right clients, partner with the right people, and continue on that journey is what really the future holds for us.
What about plans for yourself going forward?
I don't know. I split my time between here and Scotland. I think I'll get to live the world of the best of both worlds. The kids are getting bigger. There's more football, rugby, dancing to transport them around to. No, I think we're very lucky. And also working in an industry with people you can call genuine friends. Yeah. Like, it doesn't always, rarely it seems like work. It is, obviously there's times it's hard and there's days that you don't like, but we're very privileged that we work with friends. We end up working for friends and we partner with other friends. So the property industry is a quite niche industry that there are so many different spheres, but really good people to work with in it.
That's one of my favorite things about working in the industry and fit out designer builders. I'm similar. I'm working with one of my really good friends at the moment, working for him actually, to be someone I met through the podcast, but become really good friends and collaborate on some projects, and now I'm working with him, for him, and that's one of my favorite things as well about our industry, is you can get to know people on a personal level and become friends with them.
Exactly. And I think that is a really important part of how the property industry can continue to develop, by sharing ideas and by being forward thinking, not stuck in our ways, not settling for mediocre, actually pushing things forward. And that is across buildings. And again, I think you see it, it's driven from the way that real estate is now constructed and built, and with sustainability at the front, with wellness at the front. Now design has to continue to push that forward.
Fraser, it's been a privilege.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining me on SQFT-Stories and sharing your story and being honest as well about your journey and like pitfalls. And you know, I'm sure you're going to be a massive success in the company.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
No worries at all. Thanks so much.
Thank you.